The great alien court was silent, a silence so deep that even the faint hum of the glowing walls felt loud. Hundreds of strange beings sat in curved rows, their bodies different in shape and size, some tall and thin, some heavy and armored, some made of light, all watching the center arena with sharp and curious eyes. In the middle of that vast and shining space stood one human. His name was Aaron. He looked small compared to everything around him. No armor on his body, no weapon in his hands. Only simple dark clothes and a calm face. But there was something unusual about him. He was not shaking. He was not looking around in fear. He was simply standing still, as if he belonged there. High above him on a grand throne sat the alien queen. Her presence filled the entire hall. Her skin shimmered like silver under the lights. Her long form wrapped in flowing energy, her eyes glowing with a quiet but dangerous power. She had ruled for centuries, and no one had ever challenged her and lived. The court respected her, feared her, and obeyed her without question. And today, they had gathered for something unexpected, something no one fully understood yet. The queen slowly leaned forward, her gaze locked on the human below, as if she was trying to read him, trying to see what made him different from all the others who had come and failed. Her voice finally broke the silence, calm but echoing across the massive hall. "Beat me, human, and I will be yours." For a moment, no one moved, no one breathed. The words hung in the air like a shockwave. Then whispers spread like fire, disbelief, confusion, even fear. This was not a normal challenge. This was something far more dangerous. Many warriors in the past had tried to impress the queen. Some had begged for a favor. Some had tried to fight their way into her attention. But none had ever been given such an offer, and none had ever survived her true tests. The guards near the arena tightened their grip on their weapons, unsure of what would happen next. All eyes turned back to the human, waiting for him to step back, to refuse, or to show fear like everyone else before him. But Aaron did none of those things. He lifted his head slightly and looked straight at the queen, his expression steady, his voice quiet but clear. "I accept." The reaction was instant. The entire court burst into shocked voices. Some laughed in disbelief, some shouted in warning. Others simply stared, unable to understand what they had just heard. A weak human had accepted the queen's challenge without hesitation. It made no sense. It felt wrong. Even the queen's eyes narrowed just a little, not in anger, but in curiosity. She had expected fear, hesitation, or at least doubt, but this human had given none of that. Instead, he stood there as if he had already made peace with whatever was about to happen. The queen slowly rose from her throne. Her movement alone was enough to silence the entire court again. The lights around her seemed to bend as she stepped down, her energy filling the space with quiet pressure. She began to walk toward the edge of the arena, each step controlled and graceful, yet heavy with power. "Do you understand what you have accepted?" she asked, her voice softer now, but more dangerous than before. Aaron did not look away. "Yes," he replied simply, though in truth, he did not know everything. He only knew one thing. He could not turn back now. Far from the main seats, hidden among the crowd, some older beings watched with deep interest. They had seen countless trials, countless deaths, and yet something about this moment felt different. Something was changing. Something was beginning. The queen stopped at the edge and looked down at Aaron for a long moment, as if she was measuring him, not just his strength, but his mind, his will, and something deeper that even she could not fully name. "Very well," she said at last. And the arena floor suddenly began to glow with strange symbols, lines of light forming patterns that no human could understand. A low sound filled the air as the trial system activated, ancient and powerful, older than most empires in the galaxy. This was no simple fight. This was a test designed to break even the strongest beings. And still, Aaron did not move. He stood in the center, calm as before, watching, waiting, ready. And in that quiet moment before everything began, he spoke again, his voice low but steady. "Before we start," he said, and for the first time, the court leaned in closer, curious about what a human could possibly say at a time like this. "If you find this interesting," he added gently, "subscribe to the channel. There's more to come. A few beings looked confused at the strange words. Others ignored it completely. But the queen's lips curved just slightly, amused by his calm even now. Then her expression returned to focus. Her hand lifted slowly, and the air around the arena grew heavy. The real test was about to begin, and no one in that court could look away anymore, because deep inside, they all felt it. This was not going to end the way they expected, and whatever happened next would be remembered across the stars. The glowing symbols on the arena floor began to move, shifting like living lines of light, and a low vibration filled the air, deep and steady, as if the court itself was waking up. The alien queen raised her hand slightly, and in that single motion the entire arena changed. The bright hall vanished from Aaron's sight, replaced by a dark and endless space. Cold wind brushed against his face, and the silence returned, heavier than before. This was not a simple illusion. This was the queen's mind. Trial, a place where reality mixed with memory, where fear took shape and weakness became visible. Many warriors had entered this trial with confidence, and none had left the same. Aaron stood alone in the darkness, his breath slow and controlled, his eyes scanning the empty space around him. Then the first whisper came, soft, almost gentle, calling his name from far away. Aaron. He did not react, but the whisper grew louder, turning into many voices, overlapping, surrounding him from every direction. Some sounded like strangers. Others felt familiar. Shadows began to appear at the edges of his vision. Tall shapes moving slowly. Watching him, waiting, the ground beneath him shifted, turning into something uneven, like broken earth. And in the distance, faint images started to form, moments from his past, moments he had tried to forget. A cold night, an empty home, the feeling of being alone when no one answered his call. The voices changed. Now they were clear. Now they spoke with meaning. You are weak, one voice said, sharp and cutting. You do not belong here. Another followed, deeper and heavier. Turn back, or be broken. The shadows moved closer, taking clearer forms, faces without eyes, bodies without shape, all carrying the same silent message, that he would fail, that he was nothing compared to the beings of this galaxy. In the real court, the audience watched closely. They could not see what Aaron was seeing, but they could feel the pressure of the trial. They knew what it did to the mind. They had seen strong warriors fall to their knees, screaming, begging for release. The queen stood still at the edge of the arena, her glowing eyes focused, observing every detail. She was not just testing his strength. She was searching for something hidden inside him, something that made him different. Back inside the illusion, the darkness deepened, and suddenly the ground beneath Aaron cracked open, revealing a memory so real that it stole the air from his lungs. He was no longer in the void. He stood in a place from his past, a place filled with pain, a moment where he had failed, where he had lost something important. The air felt heavy with regret, the kind that stayed with a person no matter how far they traveled. The voices softened now, no longer attacking, but guiding. Stay here, they whispered. You cannot change what you are, but you can stop the pain. The illusion tried to pull him in, to make him believe, to make him accept this false peace. Aaron's expression did not break, but his eyes changed slightly. There was recognition there, a quiet understanding. He slowly closed his eyes, shutting out the moving shadows, shutting out the voices, and for a moment, everything became still. In the real arena, something unusual happened. The glowing symbols flickered just for a second. The queen noticed it instantly, her gaze sharpening. This had never happened before. Not at this stage. Inside the trial, Aaron took a slow breath. And when he opened his eyes again, the fear was gone. Not because the illusion had weakened, but because he had chosen not to give it power. You are showing me things I already know, he said quietly, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. The shadows paused, as if confused, as if the trial itself was reacting to his words. I've already lived through this, he continued, taking a step forward. The ground shifted again, trying to stop him, but he did not stop. You think this will break me, he said, but this is nothing new. The darkness around him began to crack, thin lines of light cutting through the illusion like fractures in glass. The whispers turned into sharp noise, trying to regain control, try to overwhelm him one last time. The shadows rushed toward him. Faster now, more aggressive, more desperate, but Aaron did not run. He stood his ground, his eyes focused, his breathing calm. And in a single moment, the entire illusion shattered, breaking apart into fragments of light that faded into nothing. The cold darkness disappeared, and the arena returned bright and real. As if nothing had happened, Aaron stood exactly where he had been, unmoved, unharmed, but the air around him felt different now, heavier with attention. The court was completely silent. No whispers, no movement, just shock, deep and undeniable. Many of them had never seen anyone break the mind trial so quickly, and certainly not a human. The guards looked at each other, unsure of what to think. The nobles leaned forward, their interest now fully captured. And the queen did not hide her reaction this time. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but not in anger, in curiosity, in focus, in something that had not been there before, respect mixed with intrigue. "You ended it too soon," she said slowly, her voice calm, but carrying a deeper tone now. Aaron looked up at her, his face still composed. "It was never real," he replied, simple and direct. The queen held his gaze for a long moment, as if searching for doubt, for weakness, for anything she could use, but she found none. And that made the situation far more interesting than she had expected. The arena lights shifted again, reacting to her will, and a faint smile touched her lips. "Then let us see," she said quietly, "how you handle something that is real." And as her hand lowered, the ground began to shake once more, signaling that the next test would not be inside his mind, but far more dangerous. And this time, the entire court leaned forward together, because whatever came next would decide if this human was truly different or just another story waiting to end. The moment the queen's hand lowered, the entire arena trembled as if something massive was waking beneath it. Deep cracks of light spread across the floor. Not like before. These were wild and unstable, pulsing with raw energy. The air grew thick and hot, carrying a low growl that did not belong to any machine. The court felt it instantly. This was not a controlled illusion. This was something alive, something dangerous. Many in the audience shifted in their seats, some leaning back in fear, others leaning forward in excitement because they recognized what was coming, and they knew that most beings never survived it. Aaron stood still at the center, his eyes focused on the ground as the sound grew louder, heavier, closer. Then suddenly the arena floor exploded upward with a violent shock, sending shards of glowing stone into the air, and from the broken ground emerged a creature so massive that it blocked the lights above, its body covered in thick, layered armor that looked like living metal, each movement making a grinding sound like shifting blades. Its eyes burned with a deep orange glow, filled with pure instinct and rage. Its breath came out in heavy waves, hot enough to distort the air around its mouth. This was no ordinary beast. This was a war creature, designed and raised in the harshest systems of the galaxy, used to crush armies and destroy entire battle lines. And now it stood face to face with one unarmed human. A low murmur spread across the court. Some voices filled with pity, others with dark amusement. "It will be over quickly," one noble whispered. "No human can survive that." Another added. Even the guards tightened their stance, ready in case things went out of control, but the queen remained silent, her glowing eyes fixed only on Aaron, watching, measuring, waiting. The creature lowered its massive head, locking its burning gaze onto him. It did not roar immediately. Instead, it studied him, sensing something unusual, something it did not understand. Aaron did not move, but his posture changed slightly, more alert now, more grounded, his breathing steady, his eyes tracking every small movement of the beast. The silence stretched for a moment that felt too long. Then, without warning, the creature attacked, its speed shocking for its size, its body lunging forward like a storm breaking loose. The ground cracked beneath its weight, its claw cutting through the air with enough force to tear metal apart. Many in the court gasped, expecting the human to be crushed instantly, But the last possible moment, Aaron moved, not fast like the creature, but precise. He stepped just out of reach, the claw missing him by inches, the force of it sending a shock wave past him, his clothes shifting in the wind, but his balance never breaking. The creature turned instantly, faster now, more aggressive, its tail whipping across the arena, smashing into the walls and sending sparks flying. Aaron ducked low, rolling just enough to avoid the strike, rising again without panic, without wasted movement. The beast growled louder, anger rising as its attacks failed to land. It was not used to missing, not used to being avoided. It attacked again and again, each strike heavier, faster, more destructive, tearing the arena apart piece by piece. But Aaron did not fight back. Not yet. He only watched, only moved, only learned, his eyes following the rhythm of the creature, the pattern in its attacks, the way its body shifted before each strike, the slight delay between its movements, small details that others would miss. But to him, they were everything. In the court, the whispers changed, confusion replacing certainty. Why is he not dead yet? Someone said. He is not even attacking. Another added. The queen's expression remained calm, but her focus sharpened. She could see it now, what the human was doing, and it was not simple survival. It was something deeper, something far more dangerous. Back in the arena, the creature let out a full roar, louder than before, shaking the very structure of the court. Its frustration turning into rage, it charged again, this time with full force, its armored body glowing slightly as it pushed its strength to the limit. This was not just an attack. This was an attempt to end the fight completely. Aaron stood still for a fraction of a second, then moved forward instead of back. A choice so unexpected that even the queen's eyes shifted slightly as the creature's massive form came crashing toward him. Aaron stepped to the side at the exact right moment, placing his hand briefly against its armored body, not to push it, but to guide it, using its own momentum, its own power, redirecting it just enough. The creature's attack missed its target and continued forward. Unable to stop its own force, it slammed into the far wall of the arena with a thunderous impact, the entire structure shaking as cracks spread across the surface, dust and light filling the air. For a moment, everything went quiet again. The creature lay still, its body slowly settling, its heavy breaths echoing through the arena. Then it tried to rise, but its movements were weaker now, unbalanced, the damage from its own force taking effect. Aaron stood a few steps away, watching calmly, not celebrating, not rushing, just waiting. The court was completely silent. No one spoke, no one moved, because what they had just seen did not match their understanding. This was not strength, not in the way they knew it. This was control, timing, awareness, something far more refined than raw power. The creature finally stopped struggling, its glowing eyes dimming slightly as it accepted defeat. And in that moment, the reality became clear. The human had not overpowered the beast. He had outmatched it without ever meeting its strength directly. High above, the queen slowly straightened, her gaze locked on Aaron. And this time, there was no doubt in her expression, no hidden test, only clear and growing interest. You do not fight like the others, she said, her voice carrying across the silent court. Aaron looked up at her, his face still calm. I do not need to, he replied, simple as before. The queen held his gaze for a long moment. Then a faint smile appeared, sharper now, more certain. Good, she said quietly, because the next test will not give you time to think. And as her words faded, the arena lights dimmed once again, but this time there was something different in the air, something deeper, something far more personal. And for the first time since the trials began, even those in the highest seats felt a small sense of unease, because whatever was coming next was not meant to test the body, and not even the mind, but something far more dangerous, something that very few had ever faced and survived. The arena did not shake this time. There was no warning roar, no rising heat, no sign of violence. Instead, everything grew quiet, unnaturally quiet. The lights dimmed until the vast alien court faded into soft shadows, and for a brief moment it felt as if time itself had slowed. The queen did not move from her place, yet her presence seemed to spread across the arena like an unseen force. Her glowing eyes fixed on Aaron with a depth that felt far more dangerous than any beast. "This is the final trial," she said, her voice low and steady, but carrying a weight that pressed against every mind in the court. Not of fear, not of strength, but of truth. The words echoed and then disappeared, and in the next instant, the world around Aaron changed again. But unlike before, there was no violent shift, no darkness, no chaos. The transformation was smooth, almost gentle. Like stepping into a dream he did not realize he had entered, the cold arena vanished, replaced by warmth, soft golden light. Filled the space, and a calm breeze moved through the air, carrying a sense of peace so real that it almost felt painful. Aaron stood still, his eyes slowly adjusting, and what he saw made his breath pause for just a moment. He was no longer in the alien court. He stood in a place from his past, not the painful one from before, but something deeper, something he had not allowed himself to remember in a long time. It was a home, simple, quiet, safe, a place where nothing demanded strength, where nothing expected survival, a place where he could just exist, the kind of place every traveler secretly wished to return to. The ground beneath his feet felt solid and familiar. The air carried warmth instead of tension. And for the first time since the trials began, there was no danger in sight, no shadows, no whispers, only silence and comfort. In the distance, a figure appeared, moving slowly toward him, not threatening, not strange, but known, deeply known, someone from his past, someone tied to memories he had buried under years of struggle. The figure stopped a few steps away, their presence calm, their expression gentle. "You don't have to fight anymore," the voice said softly, and it was not an illusion of fear. It was something far more dangerous. It was understanding, it was relief, it was everything a tired mind wanted to hear. Aaron did not move, but his eyes softened slightly. The kind of reaction that could not be fake, because this was not attacking him. It was inviting him, offering him something real, something meaningful, something he had lost. The air around him seemed to grow warmer, heavier with emotion. The distant edges of this place expanded, showing more pieces of life he could have had, peaceful days, quiet nights, a future without struggle, without pain, without endless battles against forces far greater than himself. The voice came again, closer this time. "You have done enough," it said. "No one will blame you for stopping now." In the real court, the audience leaned forward in silence. Many of them did not understand this trial, but the older ones did, and they watched with serious expressions, because they knew that this test was not about breaking the mind. It was about convincing it. Even the strongest warriors could fall here, not because they were weak, but because they were tired, because deep down, everyone carried a desire to rest, to escape, to be free from endless struggle. The queen remained still, her gaze sharp, watching not just Aaron's actions, but the smallest changes in his expression, because this was where the truth would show, not strength, not skill, but choice. Back inside the illusion, the figure took another step closer, now close enough to reach out. "Stay," the voice whispered gently. "Everything you want is here." And for a moment, a very small moment, Aaron did not respond. His eyes moved across the scene, taking it in, feeling it, understanding it. The warmth, the peace, the absence of pain. It was perfect, too perfect. And that was the first crack, not in the illusion, but in its logic. Aaron's breathing remained steady, but something in his gaze changed, a quiet awareness rising beneath the surface. He looked at the figure, not with rejection, but with something more complex, something deeper, almost like sadness. "This is not real," he said quietly, not as a challenge, not as a denial, but as a simple truth. The air around him shifted slightly, almost reacting to his words. The figure did not disappear, did not turn into shadow. Instead, it remained, calm and patient. "Does it matter?" the voice asked softly. "If it feels real?" The question hung in the air, heavier than any threat, because it was not trying to force him. It was asking him to choose, to accept comfort over reality, to step away from a path filled with struggle and pain, and take something easier, something kinder. Aaron closed his eyes slowly, the warmth pressing against him, the quiet calling him to stay. And for a moment, the entire court seemed to hold its breath because this was the moment that decided everything. Then Aaron exhaled softly and opened his eyes again, the calm in them unchanged, but now stronger, clearer. Yes, he said, his voice steady, it matters. He took a step forward, not into the illusion, but through it, the space around him flickering like a broken reflection. Because if I stay here, he continued, then none of it was real. Not the struggle, not the pain, not the reason I came here. The warmth began to fade, slowly at first, then faster, the golden light breaking into fragments, the figure reaching out as if to stop him, but unable to hold him in place. I didn't come this far to escape, Aaron said, and with that, the entire illusion shattered, not violently, but quietly like a dream ending. The warmth vanished, the peaceful world collapsing into light, and the arena returned once more, cold, vast, and real. Aaron stood exactly where he had been, unchanged, but the air around him felt different now, heavier, charged with something unspoken. The court was silent again, but this silence was deeper, filled with realization, because many of them understood what had just happened, and how rare it was to walk away from that kind of offer. The queen slowly stepped forward, no longer distant, no longer observing from above, but closer now, her presence sharper, more focused than before, her eyes locked onto Aaron with a new intensity. Not just curiosity now, but something closer to recognition. You refused peace, she said quietly, as if confirming it for herself. Aaron met her gaze without hesitation. I refuse a lie, he replied, and for the first time since the trials began, the queen did not respond immediately. She studied him in silence, as if seeing him clearly now, not as a human, not as a challenger, but as something far more rare. And when she finally spoke again, her voice carried a different tone, one that sent a quiet wave through the entire court. Then there's only one thing left, she said, and as she stepped into the arena fully, the energy around her began to rise, no longer hidden, no longer controlled, but vast and undeniable. Face me, she said, and in that moment, every being in the court understood. The real trial had only just begun. The moment the queen stepped fully into the arena, the entire court seemed to fall under her control. The air itself tightened, as if it was being held in place by her will. The glowing walls dimmed further, unable to compete with the rising energy that surrounded her. It was not like the power of the beast or the illusions before. This was something far greater, something ancient and refined. A force that did not need to show itself loudly because its presence alone was enough to dominate everything around it. Aaron felt it immediately, a pressure that pushed against his body, not crushing him, but testing him, measuring him in silence. The distance between them was small, but it felt endless, like standing at the edge of something far beyond understanding. The court remained completely silent. No whispers now, no movement, because this was not a test they could predict. This was something none of them had ever truly witnessed before. The queen did not rush. She walked slowly across the arena floor, each step calm, controlled, her gaze never leaving Aaron, as if she was not just preparing to fight him, but trying to read him one final time. You have passed trials that have ended empires, she said, her voice steady, carrying through the still air. But this is not a trial you can solve. She stopped a few steps away from him, the energy around her pulsing once like a silent warning. Aaron stood his ground, his breathing steady, his eyes focused. He did not respond with words, because he understood now there was nothing left to say. Only action remained. For a brief moment, everything became still, the kind of stillness that comes just before something breaks. Then, without any signal, the queen moved, her form blurring as she crossed the distance instantly, faster than anything Aaron had faced before, her strike precise and not to test, but to end. Aaron reacted on instinct, his body shifting just enough to avoid the direct hit. But even that near miss sent a sharp force through him, pushing him back several steps, his feet sliding across the arena floor. He barely held his balance. And in that moment, he understood the truth. This was not something he could simply outlast. The queen turned smoothly, her movements flawless, already preparing her next strike. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. Every action carried intent. She attacked again, faster, sharper, her energy cutting through the space between them like invisible blades. Aaron moved again, but this time it was harder. The speed, the pressure, the precision, it was all beyond anything he had faced before. He was not just avoiding attacks. He was surviving moments that could end him instantly. The court watched in silence, many unable to even follow the movements. To them, it looked like flashes of motion, brief collisions of light and shadow. But those with greater awareness could see it clearly. The queen was not holding back, and the human was still standing, still, adapting, still learning. Each movement Aaron made became more refined, more controlled. He was not trying to overpower her because he knew that was impossible. Instead, he focused on understanding her rhythm. Just like before, but this time it was far more complex. Her pattern shifted constantly, her attacks unpredictable, designed to prevent exactly what he was trying to do. The pressure increased, the arena floor cracking under their movements, energy scattering with each near impact. Aaron felt his limits being tested with every second, his body slower than hers, his strength far less, but his mind remained clear, searching, adjusting, waiting for something, anything that could give him a chance. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly as she observed him. She could see it now, the same thing he had used before, the same method of learning, adapting, surviving, but this was different. This was her domain, her level. And yet, he was still there, still moving, still refusing to fall. The fight continued, faster now, more intense, the space between them shrinking with every exchange until it became a constant flow of motion, attack and response, pressure and escape, neither stopping, neither giving a clear opening. The court felt the tension building because something was changing, something was approaching. Then it happened, just for a fraction of a second, the smallest shift, a slight delay in the queen's movement, so small that no one else would notice, but Aaron did. His eyes caught it instantly. His body reacted without hesitation. He stepped forward, not back, closing the distance instead of escaping it. The queen's next strike came, fast and precise as always, but this time Aaron moved inside its path, not avoiding it, but slipping past it at the exact angle, his hand rising, not with force, but with perfect timing, stopping just at the point where her core energy gathered. A single moment where everything froze. The motion, the energy, the entire arena, held in silence, because in that instant, the outcome was clear. Aaron could have ended the fight, not by overpowering her, but by reaching the one point that mattered, the one opening that existed for only a heartbeat. The court felt it, the realization spreading through them like a shock. The queen herself went still, her glowing eyes locked onto his, not with anger, not with fear, but with something deeper. Something that had not been there before. Understanding. Aaron did not move further. His hand remained where it was, close enough to finish it, but he did not strike. Seconds passed, slow and heavy. Then he lowered his hand, stepping back slightly, breaking the moment. The energy around them settled, but the tension did not fade. It changed, becoming something else entirely. The court did not react immediately because they were still trying to understand what they had just seen. A human had reached a position no one had ever reached before, and then chose not to take it. The queen remained still for a moment longer, her gaze fixed on him, searching, questioning. And when she finally spoke, her voice was no longer just powerful. It carried something new, something rare. Why? She asked quietly, and the single word echoed deeper than any command she had given before, because this time she was not testing him. She was asking him, truly asking, wanting to understand the choice he had just made. And in that silence, with the entire court watching, the answer he gave would matter more than the fight itself, because this was no longer about strength. It was about something far more dangerous, something that could change everything for both of them and for everyone who had witnessed it. The question did not fade. It remained in the air like a weight that no one could ignore. The queen stood unmoving, her power still surrounding her, but no longer pressing forward, her glowing eyes locked onto Aaron with a focus that had changed completely. This was no longer the gaze of a ruler judging a challenger. It was the gaze of someone searching for truth, something rare, something real. The court waited in absolute silence, because they understood that whatever answer came next would matter more than everything that had happened before. Aaron lowered his hand fully and took a small step back, not in fear, but in respect of the moment, his breathing steady, his expression calm as always. Yet there was something deeper in his eyes now, something that carried weight, something that had been building through every trial. He did not rush to speak, and that silence itself made the tension grow stronger. The queen did not interrupt him. For the first time, she allowed someone else to control the moment, because this was never about defeating you. Aaron said at last, his voice quiet but clear, every word reaching every corner of the vast court. A faint ripple moved through the audience, confusion, disbelief, even frustration, but no one dared to speak. If I wanted to win, he continued, I would have taken that chance. His eyes remained on the queen, steady and honest. But then I would only prove that I can destroy, not that I understand. The queen's expression shifted slightly, not a full reaction, but enough to show that his words had reached her deeper than any attack could. The energy around her changed, not weakening, but becoming still, controlled in a different way. You created these trials, Aaron said, not just to test strength, but to see who stands, who thinks, who chooses. He paused for a moment, as if choosing his next words carefully. I did not come here to take something from you. I came to prove I could stand in front of you without breaking. The court felt the meaning behind those words, and it unsettled many of them, because this was not how challengers spoke. This was not how anyone spoke to the queen. Yet there was no disrespect in his tone, only clarity, only truth. The queen took a slow step forward, closing the small distance between them again. But this time there was no attack, no pressure, only presence. Her eyes studied him closely, searching for weakness, for doubt, for anything that would prove his words false. But she found none, and that absence was more powerful than anything else. You speak as if you understand my purpose, she said, her voice softer now, yet still carrying authority. Aaron did not look away. I understand enough, he replied, simple as before, but now those simple words carried a different weight. The court shifted slightly, the tension changing shape. Some of the nobles exchanged uncertain glances. The guards remained still but alert, because something was happening that they could not control, something beyond rules and power. The queen remained silent for a long moment, her thoughts unreadable. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath with her. Then slowly, something changed, not in her power, but in her presence. The sharp edge of command softened, replaced by something far more rare, acknowledgement. All who came before you fought to claim victory, she said quietly, her voice echoing less like a command and more like a statement of truth. They wanted power, control, recognition. Her gaze did not leave his, but she paused as if the next words required more than authority. You chose not to take the moment that would have made you greater than all of them. The court reacted to that, not with sound, but with a shift in energy, because they understood what she was saying. This human had reached a point no one else had reached, and then stepped away from it. The queen lifted her hand slightly, not to attack, but as a signal, and the arena responded instantly. The cracks in the floor sealed, the scattered energy faded, the space returning to its original form, calm and controlled. The trial was over, but the decision was not. She turned slightly, her gaze moving across the vast court, letting every being present feel the weight of what was about to be said. The human has passed all trials. Her voice rang out clearly, strong and undeniable, and this time, the silence that followed was different. It was not shock alone. It was resistance, disbelief, and something close to unrest, because this had never happened before, not once in a long history of her rule. A being from a lower world, a human, standing equal after facing all tests. Some voices began to rise, low at first, questioning, challenging, but they did not grow loud because the queen raised her hand again, and the entire court fell silent instantly. Her authority still absolute, still unquestioned. She turned back to Aaron, now standing closer than ever before, no longer above him, no longer distant, but face to face, her glowing eyes softer, yet more intense in a different way. "You did not win," she said, her voice quiet enough that only those closest could fully feel its meaning. "And yet, you did not lose." There was a pause, a moment where even time seemed to slow again. "You stood," she continued, "and that is something no one else has done." Aaron remained still, listening, not reacting, because he understood that this moment was not his to control anymore. The queen took one final step closer, now standing within reach, the same distance where the fight could have ended, but did not. I gave you a challenge," she said. "Beat me, and I will be yours." Her voice lowered slightly, carrying a meaning that now felt different than before, deeper, more personal. "You did not beat me," she admitted, without hesitation, without weakness, "but you reached me." Those words spread through the air like a quiet shock, because they carried something far more powerful than victory. They carried recognition, and in that moment, the entire court understood this was no longer about a trial, no longer about a challenge. This was a decision, and whatever the queen chose next would change everything they believed about power, about worth, and about the place of a single human in a universe that had never taken them seriously. And as the silence grew heavier, once more, all eyes remained fixed on her, waiting for the final choice that would define not just this moment, but everything that came after it. The silence that followed her last words did not feel empty. It felt full, heavy with the weight of something that had never happened before. The queen stood before Aaron, closer than any ruler had ever stood to a challenger. Her presence no longer distant and untouchable, but focused and real. The court waited, every being locked in that single moment, because they all understood that whatever she said next would not just end the trial. It would redefine it. The queen slowly turned, her gaze sweeping across the vast hall, meeting the eyes of nobles, warriors, elders, beings who had followed her rule for centuries without question. And for the first time, there was a shift in that rule, not weakness, not loss of control, but evolution, something new taking shape within power itself. "You have all witnessed it," she said, her voice rising, clear and undeniable. The trials were not broken. They were completed. A low wave moved through the court, uncertain, restless, but no one interrupted her, because her authority still held them in place. Strength alone failed, she continued. Fear failed, desire failed, even dominance failed. Her eyes sharpened slightly as she spoke, but this human did not fail, because he did not come here to conquer. Her gaze returned to Aaron, and the weight of it felt different now, no longer testing, but acknowledging he came to stand. The words echoed, simple, but carrying meaning that reached deeper than any command. Some in the court lowered their gaze. Others watched more closely, trying to understand what they were seeing, what they were hearing, because this was not how power was supposed to work. The queen stepped forward again, now standing at the center of the arena with him. Not above, not apart, but beside. The challenge was clear, she said, her voice calmer now, but stronger in a different way. "Beat me, and I will be yours." She paused, letting those words settle, letting their meaning return. Then she spoke again, and this time, every being in the court felt it before they even understood it. "He did not beat me," she said, openly, without hesitation. "And yet, I will not deny what he has proven." A ripple of tension spread instantly, sharper than before, because now they could feel it, the shift that could not be undone. The queen turned fully toward Aaron, her eyes no longer searching, no longer questioning, but certain. "You stood as an equal when no one else could," she said quietly, but her voice carried through the entire hall. "You saw through fear, through illusion, through power itself, and you chose not to take control when you had the chance." She took one final step closer, now standing directly in front of him, the distance between them no longer a space of conflict, but of decision. "That is not weakness," she continued. "That is something far more dangerous." The court held its breath again, because they knew what was coming, even if they did not want to accept it. The queen lifted her hand, not in attack, not in command, but in declaration. "From this moment," she said, her voice rising once more, This human is no longer a challenger. He is recognized. The word echoed, stronger than any title she could have given, because it carried her full authority, her full will, not as a subject, not as a servant, she added, her gaze sharp as it swept across the court, silencing any thought of resistance before it could form. But as an equal to this throne, the reaction this time could not be contained. Voices rose, shock breaking into open unrest. Disbelief turning into challenge. Some stood from their seats, unable to accept what they had just heard, because this was more than a decision. It was a change to everything they believed, everything they had built their power on. But the queen did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Her presence alone expanded, filling the arena with a force that pushed back against every sound, every objection, until silence returned once more, stronger than before. You question it, she said, her tone calm but unbreakable. Then face what he faced, and stand as he stood. No one moved after that. No one answered, because they all knew the truth of those words. They had seen the trials, they had felt their weight, and none of them had stepped forward when it mattered. The queen lowered her hand slowly, the tension in the air settling, but not fading, because what had been decided could not be undone. She turned back to Aaron, and for the first time, there was no distance between ruler and challenger, no test, no hidden meaning, only clarity. The galaxy will not accept this easily, she said, her voice quieter now, meant only for him, yet still carrying across the silence. They will challenge you, they will test you, they will try to break what you have proven here. There was no warning in her tone, only truth. Aaron met her gaze, unchanged, steady as before. Then I will stand again, he replied simply, and something in the queen's expression shifted once more. Not surprised this time, but something closer to approval. She gave a small nod, almost unnoticeable, but real. Then she turned away, facing the vast court once more. This is not the end, she declared, her voice rising for the final time. This is the beginning. And those words spread far beyond the arena, beyond the court, beyond even that world, because decisions like this did not stay contained. They moved, they echoed, they changed things in ways no one could fully predict. And as the court remained in stunned silence, as the power structures they had known began to shift, under a truth they could not deny, one thing became clear. A single human had walked into a place where he did not belong, faced trials that were never meant for him, and instead of being broken, he had changed the meaning of strength itself. And somewhere far beyond that moment, beyond the stars and the systems that would soon hear what had happened, the future had already begun to move. Because this was not just the end of a challenge. It was the start of something far greater, something that would test not just one human, but an entire galaxy. And this time, the outcome was no longer certain.